A family of 6 shot and killed, including a 17-year-old mother and her 6-month-old baby, and the police think it was gang-related.
The Tulare County Sheriff says shooter stood over a young mother as she clutched her 10-month-old baby boy and pumped bullets into both their heads.
2 suspects were arrested this morning in connection to the massacre of 6 people in the town of Goshen in Tulare County.
The mention of cartels and narcotics trafficking immediately reminds us of Latin America, or in recent days, Mexico. Their aggression, violence, and cunning maneuvers have taken the lives of hundreds of thousands of people in Mexico. Along with narcotics, the violence has unfortunately begun to cross into the borders of the U.S. The latest chapter of this horror story ended the lives of a family of 6 in California, including a teenager and a 6-month-old baby. It looked like a homicide, but it was far from one. As the locals grappled with fear and worry over their safety, the law enforcement claimed that the approach reminded them of cartel executions. But how was this possible? How did cartels make their way into California? Was it a smart decision on their part to make their presence known to the general public and law enforcement of the locality? Why did they take the lives of those people? And most importantly, did the authorities capture the perpetrators? Let's take a look at the chilling case of Tulare County, in which a family was destroyed in a matter of a few minutes. So what happened on that fateful day that took the lives of 6 victims? The incident took place at 6800 block of Harvest Road in Goshen along Highway 99 right outside of Visalia in Tulare County. The Perez family lived there. The 72-year-old Rosa Perez, 52-year-old Eladio Perez Jr., 50-year-old Jennifer Anala, 19-year-old Marcos Perez, 16-year-old Alyssa Perez, and 10-month-old Nicholas Perez were in the house that night when perpetrators entered their property with the motive to gun them down. The incident took place in the early morning of January 2023. The neighbors heard multiple firings. Someone called the 911, and the Tulare Police Department was dispatched to the house immediately. The 911 dispatcher informed the police that one of the surviving victims could hear gunfires clearly.
She believes somebody may be inside the house. She's in the trailer. She believes the subjects are inside the house. There's 5 adults and 1 baby. She can still hear these shots.
The vice president of the California State Sheriff's Association, Mike Boudreau, was present during the investigation, and he described the incident as he had experienced it that day.
People reporting the shots fired believe that there was an active shooter in progress.
It took the deputy 7 minutes to arrive at the scenario, but the deed was done by that time, and all the victims except one had succumbed to their injuries.
As deputies searched the area, they found multiple victims in the same area at the scene on the property. There were victims both inside the home and outside of the home.
The victim who was alive was immediately given medical attention, but the police couldn't save him.
One of the victims, when deputies arrived, was still alive. He immediately began CPR. Unfortunately, he died at the hospital.
As per the statement by the sheriff, the family of 6 went through severe pain during the incident. The perpetrator fired at Eladio and Marcos first.
Eladio Perez was killed first. He was shot in the torso and in the leg. Marcos Perez, we believe, was shot second. He was shot in the head.
The suspects then moved to kill 2 female members of the family.
Third was Jennifer Anaya. She was asleep and shot in the head as well. Fourth was Rosa Perez. She was found kneeling and was shot in the head.
But the sickening and most disturbing were the sights of the teen mother Alyssa Perez and her infant. Security footage revealed that she had attempted to run away from the scenario.
She was running with her small 10-month-old baby. She ran to the gate, she ran to the fence, protecting her child, laid it on the other side of the fence. Young lady, young mother, jumped over the fence in an effort to save her life and her baby's life.
But despite all the efforts, she hadn't managed to run away from the grasp of the perpetrators. They were so vindictive that they fired at them out in the open street, even though they ran the risk of being seen or getting caught there.
Alyssa and Nicholas were both found dead on the street. Both shot in the back of the head.
What we have since learned through forensics is that it was clear that the shooter stood over the top of the 16-year-old mother and fired rounds into her head. The 10-month-old infant also suffered from the same attack, Boudreau said. The police found another victim in the doorway and 3 inside the house. The grandmother was sleeping in the bed when the perpetrators fired at her.
2 of the victims were found outside the home. Another was found in the doorway, and 3 other people were shot and killed inside the house.
3 people protected themselves by hiding during the attack, and 2 of them hid in a trailer. Investigations later found that one of them had called 911.
It was later learned that the 911 call actually came from a surviving victim of this shooting.
The third survivor was inside the house but hid in another room. He put his feet up against the door and laid flat, hoping no one would come in. He actually described them rattling the doorknob to see if they could get in, and then they moved on, leaving him inside, Boudreaux explained. Thankfully, the attackers hadn't thought of entering the trailer. Otherwise, the two survivors wouldn't make it out alive. Since the beginning of the investigation, the officers were certain that this was not a regular homicide, and that local gangs or cartels were involved in the crime.
Investigators believe this may be some kind of cartel execution, and they're searching for several suspects.
On the day of the incident, Sheriff Boudreaux announced that they had two suspects.
We believe we have at least two suspects at this point. We also believe that this is not a random act of violence.
Sheriff Boudreaux suspected that the family was on the radar of the perpetrators, and it might be the work of a gang or a cartel.
We believe that this was a targeted family. We believe that there are gang associations involved in this scene, as well as potential narcotics investigations.
But were there cartels in the United States? Sheriff Boudreaux said with conviction that there was cartel presence in California and even Tulare County.
Well, I can tell you that we do have cartels here in the Central Valley. We do have cartel in Tulare County.
To further stress his argument, the sheriff pointed at the style the suspects had adopted to finish off their victims. It clearly hinted that either a gang or a cartel was behind the attack. These people were clearly shot in the head, and they were also shot in places that the shooter would know that quick death would occur, Boudreaux said. The sheriff also had solid reasons behind his argument. The cartels primarily sold narcotics, and the United States was a profitable market, and therefore a hotbed for the traffickers.
They are here for multiple reasons. Selling drugs is lucrative. There's a lot of money to be made, and it focuses on the money.
Also, lax security might be responsible for these incidents. Traffickers can enter the borders anytime they want. They don't have to go through much scrutiny, giving them plenty of chances to escape the eyes of law enforcement.
The other is that we have a very unsecure border right now. There's a lot of back and forth when it comes to the cartels and free movement up and down the state and across the border.
Initially, the sheriff didn't comment on the identity of the suspected cartel.
But be very clear, I'm not identifying or pointing a finger at any one cartel. I'm not. I'm saying that what took place is very much like what we've seen in the past when it comes to an execution by cartel.
But investigations later uncovered the identity of the gang responsible for this heinous crime. So how did the police handle the case? They ran an operation to catch the suspects, and after substantial efforts, were able to capture them.
The suspects were arrested after police executed a plan called Operation Nightmare.
The officers searched the city thoroughly and even checked a prison multiple times to find a clue on the two suspects of the crime.
Multiple search warrants were served, one in Visalia and two in Goshen, and inmate cells associated with a prison gang were searched in multiple state prisons.
The intensive search came to fruition when police apprehended 25-year-old Noah Beard and 35-year-old Angel Uriarte in February 2023. Beard cooperated with the police, but Uriarte put up a fight and was wounded. Beard was taken into custody without incident, Tulare County Sheriff Mike Boudreaux said on Friday afternoon. Uriarte, on the other hand, engaged in a gun battle with ATF agents. He was struck and rushed to a nearby hospital and is currently undergoing surgery. He is in stable condition and expected to survive. After the arrest of these two, Sheriff Boudreaux revealed that the family members were part of a family related to a notorious cartel. Investigations later revealed that the Perez family had been in a deep feud with the suspects for a long time. History proves that these two gangs have been at war for many years. In August 2014, the deputy at Tulare County received a call describing an attack and rushed to the Wooden Shoe RV park in Goshen. They came across Eladio Perez and his girlfriend Crystal Hammonds. She was in tears. A thorough questioning revealed that someone in a white sedan had fired at Hammonds before rushing away. The attacker was a female. According to Perez, she could be associated with someone called Nano, with whom Perez had a family rivalry. Hammonds had returned from the trailer park's office after taking a shower. The white sedan was driving by. She saw a Latina sitting inside. She made eye contact with her. The car stopped and drifted about 30 feet on the dirt. Before Hammonds could understand anything, she heard gunshots. She ran away and hid behind another car. Dirt hit her leg, and she understood that she was being fired at. The white sedan quickly drove away after putting holes in the car she was hiding behind. She called Peraz immediately, who had then called the deputy to report the incident. Peraz pointed his fingers at Angel Uriarte, who belonged to the rival gang. Uriarte was indeed found guilty and was later arrested for the attack. Peraz told the deputy his family and Nano's family had an extensive history and feud. Police identified Nano as Angel Uriarte and determined he had shot at Hammonds that night in 2014. Uriarte eventually was sentenced to prison for the shooting. Could the Goshen massacre in 2023 be a revenge for Uriarte's arrest and imprisonment in 2014? The sheriff's statement definitely hints at it. If there was a motive for this massacre, it was that the two families belonged to rival gangs. No other facts could be established. Tulare County Sheriff Mike Boudreau said last week that his investigators had identified no motive for the K*lings, beyond the fact that members of the Peraz family were Sureños, street gang members subservient to the prison-based Mexican mafia, while most gangs in the Visalia area identify as Norteño, meaning they answer to the Nuestra Familia, a prison gang that rivals the Mexican mafia. The feud between these two gangs is not a new incident in LA. Gang violence has been reported many times and hundreds of people have lost their lives. A report in 2021 spoke of the number of people who ended up as casualties of these gang wars.
Already this year, at least 143 people have been murdered. Hundreds more have been shot.
Security cameras captured multiple bullet exchanges between gangs and drive-by attacks in LA.
Dozens of shots fired by 3 gunmen during a drive-by shooting in South LA, recorded on security and front door cameras.
More than 70 rounds of bullets were fired, but there were no casualties in this attack. However, the same gangs clashed a few days apart, and people lost their lives.
But bullets did hit their target Monday night. This was the scene on West 29th Street in the Jefferson Park neighborhood, where 19-year-old Rayshawn Spite was murdered, one of the latest victims of the surge in killings and shootings that seems to have no end.
The report stated that the number of homicides in LA had gone up in 2021, and was much higher compared to past years.
Homicides are up 22% compared with this time last year and 43% above this time 2 years ago, sadly consistent with the rise in other kinds of crime. More than 600 people have been shot since the first of the year, a rate of gun attacks that have outpaced last year by nearly 60%.
Police back then had also pointed their fingers at the gangs in LA for the increasing rate of homicides. However, there were also some other factors for the sudden spike in these crimes.
As for the potential causes, the pandemic and loss of jobs and increasing conflicts within the illegal drug trade share a portion of the blame.
Another news report made in 2022 indicated that even the children were prime victims of these incidents, and the violence against them had also risen in LA. As a result, the police asked little children to be more vigilant while out in the streets, which outraged the locals.
Police want kids now to be much more aware of their surroundings because they say there's criminals out there who want to steal not only their belongings, but in some cases, their lives.
Law enforcement also pointed out why children would be a much easier target for these attackers.
They're easy, vulnerable targets. They're not going to fight back. We're just seeing a wave of high violent crime affecting our student body.
In February 2022, a school student was fired at, and she was severely injured. The teen was near her school when a car drove up to her, and the person sitting inside opened fire. The teen was immediately taken to the hospital. She was stable soon. Security camera footage from early February 2022 showed 2 girls being mugged in the streets of LA.
This surveillance footage shows 2 sisters being robbed of their phones and jewelry the morning of February 2nd. This is along Melrose, and one of half a dozen similar robberies targeting students.
The above incidents prove that gang violence, muggings, and firing in the open have become common in LA in recent years. The Goshen massacre might be an isolated incident, but no one can deny that the growing number of violence in the state of California had facilitated this incident. While describing the horrors of the Goshen massacre, Sheriff Boudreau mentioned that even though the family had members who belonged to a gang, the other family members didn't have to lose their lives over a gang feud. He mentioned that the grandmother, the teen mother Alyssa, and the baby were not related to cartels or gangs, and deserved much better than to lose their lives like this. I know for a fact that this young lady was running for her life, and I know for a fact that there was no reason to kill her, but they did, Sheriff Boudreau told reporters. I know for a fact that this 10-month-old baby was riding on the comfort of his mother. There was no reason to shut that baby, and they did it. But the sheriff mentioned that they'd arrested the right people and the locals didn't need to fear them anymore.
We are confident that these are the 2 sole responsible parties for the actual slaying and the massacre that occurred on January 16th.
In January 2023, in the week prior to this incident, police had raided the Peraz residence because they were housing a felon out on parole. This was a routine procedure by the police to ensure that the felons did not pose a threat to the community. Basically, what that is when we know people who are on felony parole and are in the community, we will stop and make sure that they're abiding by the law, he explained. Police saw shell casings lying around their place. This roused their suspicion and they demanded entry inside the house. The family members denied it. The officers got a warrant, searched the house, and arrested Eladio Peraz.
Just last week, the Sheriff's Department searched the property as part of a drug-related search warrant, and they arrested one person.
The arrest wasn't made on a whim. Eladio was in possession of illegal firearms and substances. During the search, deputies found that Eladio Peraz Jr., who already had felony convictions, was in possession of ammunition, felon in possession of a firearm, felon in possession of a short-barreled rifle, felon in possession of an assault weapon, a loaded weapon in possession of a firearm, in possession of a controlled substance, Boudreaux said. He was out on bail 4 days later. Unfortunately, he became a victim of the horrendous crime. Patty Guzman is a friend of the Peraz family. She expressed her shock after the incident and couldn't believe what had happened to the family she knew so intimately.
Who goes into a house and massacres a bunch of people? Who does that?
Although the damage could never be reversed, the sheriff believed that the arrest would somewhat relieve the local population and bring justice to the deceased.
We used every resource possible to make sure that we brought the justice to the families and peace to the community of Tulare County. Law enforcement works for you. We're family. We're human beings. Our hearts are broken in cases like this as well. We're not the enemy. And I want the citizens of Tulare County to sleep a little safer tonight, knowing that these baby-killing murderers are off the street.
The convicts were charged with 6 counts of murder. Beard had pleaded not guilty, but Uriarte hadn't attended the first hearing. The second hearing took place in June 2023. Their trial was scheduled for October 2023, when their fates would be decided. Do you think these cartel brutalities can be prevented? Do you think the cartels might be going too far with these attacks on innocent children? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching the video. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel.